Kevin worked the closing shift at a small roadside diner just outside the city. Most nights were quiet. A few tired customers, truck drivers, people passing through town. Nothing unusual. But according to Kevin, the diner felt completely different after midnight, especially when the rain started. One night around 12:40 a.m., Kevin had just finished wiping the final table near the front windows. Outside, heavy rain covered the empty highway. The neon diner sign flickered constantly, and the restaurant was completely silent except for the sound of the kitchen refrigerator humming in the background. Kevin checked the clock. Closing time. Finally, he locked the front door and began stacking chairs onto the tables. That's when he heard it. The small bell above the entrance door. Ding. Kevin froze, slowly turning toward the front entrance. Nobody should have been able to enter. The door was locked, but sitting near the far corner of the diner was a man wearing a dark coat, completely motionless, head lowered toward the table. Kevin felt uneasy immediately, because seconds earlier, that booth had been empty. Kevin slowly approached him. "Sir, we're closed." No response. The man didn't move. Rainwater slowly dripped from his coat onto the floor beneath the table. Kevin stepped closer. "Sir." Then slowly, the man raised one pale hand and pointed toward the kitchen behind Kevin. Without lifting his head, Kevin turned nervously toward the dark kitchen entrance. The lights inside had already been turned off. At first, everything looked normal. Then for one brief second, Kevin thought he saw someone standing deep inside the kitchen darkness, watching him, tall, still, almost blending into the shadows. Kevin immediately looked back toward the customer. The booth was empty. The man was gone. Kevin's breathing became uneven. The front door remained locked. No sound, no footsteps, nothing, only the rain outside. Then Kevin noticed something resting on the table. A printed receipt, still warm. His hands shook as he picked it up. Time printed on the receipt. 3:13 a.m., nearly 3 hours into the future. That's when the kitchen lights suddenly flickered on by themselves. Kevin slowly looked toward the kitchen entrance again, and deep inside the darkness, he saw the same man standing motionless beside the freezer door, smiling. Kevin ran from the diner immediately, and according to his manager, the diner had experienced strange incidents for years, especially near booth number 6, the exact same booth where a customer had died decades earlier during a storm. The walk-in freezer. Rachel worked evening shifts at a fast food restaurant during summer vacation. Most employees hated closing shifts, not because of the work, but because of the basement freezer. The freezer sat beneath the restaurant in a long concrete hallway, cold, silent, and poorly lit. Employees often joked about hearing strange sounds downstairs late at night, but nobody stayed there long enough to investigate. One night around 1 a.m., Rachel's manager asked her to bring extra supplies from the freezer before closing. She grabbed a flashlight reluctantly and headed downstairs alone. The deeper she walked, the quieter the restaurant became. The hallway lights flickered softly overhead, and the air felt strangely cold. Even before reaching the freezer door, Rachel slowly opened the heavy metal door and stepped inside. Rows of frozen boxes covered the walls. Cold mist filled the air. The buzzing ceiling light flickered constantly. Rachel searched for the supplies quickly, trying not to think about the strange stories employees told upstairs. Then suddenly, the freezer door slammed shut behind her. Rachel jumped violently, dropping the flashlight. Darkness covered the freezer for several seconds before the light flickered back on. Rachel rushed toward the exit. Locked. She banged on the metal door repeatedly. Hello. No answer. Only silence. Then, she heard breathing behind her. Slow, wet, like someone standing directly between the shelves. Rachel slowly turned around. At the far end of the freezer, a tall figure stood motionless in the darkness, its face hidden completely. The figure seemed unnaturally thin, its arms hanging too low beside its body. Rachel backed away in panic. Then the figure whispered softly, "You stayed too long." The freezer lights suddenly shut off again. Complete darkness. Rachel screamed and pounded harder against the freezer door. Then suddenly, the flashlight switched back on by itself, lying across the frozen floor. Its beam pointed directly toward the figure. Except now, the thing was much closer, standing only a few feet away. Rachel covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Then, the freezer door suddenly opened by itself. Rachel ran upstairs without looking back. When she reached the kitchen, she found the manager staring toward the basement entrance silently, as if he already knew something had happened. Rachel quit the next morning, and according to older workers, employees had reported seeing the same figure downstairs for years, always near closing time, always inside the freezer. The kitchen camera. Daniel owned a small restaurant near the edge of town. Recently, employees had started complaining about strange noises after closing. Footsteps, kitchen equipment moving by itself, voices inside empty rooms. At first, Daniel blamed stress, until one employee refused to work night shifts after claiming someone was standing inside the kitchen after closing. Nobody else saw the figure, but according to her, it wasn't human. Concerned about break-ins, Daniel installed security cameras throughout the restaurant, especially inside the kitchen hallway. For several nights, nothing happened, until one morning around 5 a.m. Daniel reviewed the overnight footage from his office computer. At exactly 2:47 a.m., motion appeared inside the kitchen. Daniel leaned closer toward the screen. A tall figure stood beside the sink area, motionless, its face hidden beneath the flickering lights overhead. Daniel assumed someone had broken inside, but then he realized something disturbing. The restaurant alarm never triggered, and all doors remained locked. Daniel continued watching carefully. The figure slowly turned toward the camera, then raised one long arm, pointing directly toward the office hallway. Seconds later, every camera inside the restaurant shut off simultaneously. Static filled the screen. Daniel replayed the footage repeatedly. The figure never moved normally. It almost looked like the video skipped frames whenever it changed position. That afternoon, Daniel searched the restaurant himself. Everything appeared normal at first, until he reached the office hallway. He stopped immediately. Written across the wall in thick black letters were 4 words: "We never left here." Daniel's stomach dropped. The writing looked wet, fresh, as if someone had written it moments earlier. Then, he heard movement behind him inside the kitchen, metal utensils falling onto the floor. Daniel slowly turned toward the darkness, and for one brief second, he saw the same tall figure standing near the freezer entrance, watching him silently. Then the kitchen lights shut off, and the entire restaurant went dark. Those were 3 creepy restaurant horror stories. Stories about empty dining rooms, voices in the darkness, and things that should never appear after closing time. If you enjoyed tonight's video, subscribe for more disturbing horror stories every week. And remember, some restaurants don't truly close at night.